Stay together. Teach one another the flowers. Go light. Bring the children. Rejoice in the burble, the messiness, the glory of the human spirit in our midst, expressed in so many blossoming, budding, dying, and being reborn ways, for time and the river flowing. Henry David Thoreau said, "Time is but the stream I go a-fishing in. I drink it, but while I drink, I see the sandy bottom and I detect how shallow it is. Its thin current slides away, but eternity remains. And sometimes we are in time, sometimes we are out of time. Our time together comes to an end and new eras begin. We each, in a different blossoming ways, have different ways of relating to time. We think of the development of the human being from birth on, each layer, each one of which is part of us. For the tiniest babe, things are just happening. It's like, it's like 4th of July. Stuff just happens. And the babe says, wow. Wow, it's another thing happening. Color, drama, light, noise. Wow. And each one of those moments that we make for that vulnerable, sweet beauty within us, that's loving, that's gentle, that's caring, creates a core in our beings, in ourselves. It provides the basis for a baby's life. It is the basis of our religious education, that we will create an environment, a healthy ecology. And then as cognitive development within the human being continues, we move into a kind of narrative phrase. You know, when the children move into, oh, and then this happened, and then that happened, and then this happened, and that happened, and then he said, and then I said, and then she said. And we love our stories. The fabric of the meaning of our lives is woven with our stories. And then as children develop, there's a kind of consciousness, from episodic to narrative to consciousness, where you see an 11, 12-year-old, my name is so-and-so, I go to this school, I live in this town, in this state, in this country, on this planet, in this part of the galaxy, just real geographical, getting centered where we are. And then there's a kind of self-consciousness that occurs after that. I remember teaching 3rd and 4th graders, which was right on the cusp of when some of that cognitive self-consciousness begins to develop. And one kid is up there talking about playing baseball. And he's like, I'm up there. And another kid is like, yeah, I went up and I can see myself standing there. And I'm thinking, have I got the bat right? Am I like where I want to be? Am I like doing the right thing? And the kid looks at him like he's crazy. It's like, if you think about yourself, you can't hit the ball. But they found that each other looked at things differently. One was still in that kind of consciousness narrative, and the other was starting to develop self-consciousness. And then they say, in that land of pasture and still waters where we restoreth our souls, there can be for all of us, in each of us, a moment of universal consciousness. As Julian of Norwich would say, when there is a moment when all should be well, all should be well, all manner of things shall be well. I reflect on my time with you as a time of miracles, moments of eruption of the universal or the divine into boring old everyday life. I went to Beijing, as you know, to work with worldwide economic ethical perspectives. And there, in a temple within a temple within a temple within a temple, preserved against the greatest of oppression, targeted, directed oppression against religion and the religious perspective. Monks kept their center. Preserving their traditions. The first Buddha you met in the most outer court was a great big laughing belly Buddha. And then there were 3 bodhisattvas, and then there were the arhats, the saints, and then there was a room with 2 more Buddhas. And the final room was like 40-foot tall Buddha, who I did not relate to quite as well as the one in the courtyard just before that. And there were 3 of them, and one of them had a gaze, a look, something that I and the artist and the now thousands of years of devotion created, where I felt completely known and all forgiven, loved, held, and I wanted to live in that gaze forever. When we gaze upon one another with that breadth and depth, we give ourselves the gift of eternity. And it was for me a moment of miracle. Ah, I said, ooh. The most vulnerable, simple part of myself opened. We tell that story and hope to live in the gaze of complete love. And then there's everyday life, the narrative of things. A moment of a miracle occurred my first day here, when some very important electronic equipment got left in the kitchen, and somebody walked in through the door, grabbed it, and ran right out again with all of it, shoving it in their backpack, jumping on a bicycle, tearing off. And another person was just driving into the parking lot. They were coming to a trans Money Anonymous meeting for folks who were really doing the work. And that person saw this furtive run out the building and down the street and turned their car a complete U around and followed that person, catching up to them, got the window down, leaned over to this person still pedaling furiously away and said, "Son, you want to do the right thing." Which slowed that person down. to a halt. The car stopped, bike stops. And she said, leaning out the car window to the child, "Son, are you hungry?" And he said yes. And they went out to eat, and they brought all that equipment back. That was my first day. Ooh, ah, and then this happened, and then that happened, and then he said, and then she said. And then we become conscious of our location. Here we are in this intensely privileged place and time, born through no particular knowledge that we know of our own. How shall we take the wealth that we are given to walk abroad in a shower of all our days, as Dylan Thomas says, to take responsibility for where we are? Please don't forget to go to the outreach bulletin board and have your say. Then we become self-conscious. We say, here I am with this particular voice, this particular message, this particular position. What shall I do with it for the greater good? In our faith, we say, we believe in the worth and dignity of every person in the context of an interdependent web of all existence. Each person has worth, and we hope to preserve some dignity to help people, to help ourselves maintain some dignity in the context of an interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. General Assembly is going on this week. It's our annual convention of all Unitarian Universalists. There's some 5,000 people singing and passing resolutions and working together. I got phoned and asked to write a piece, a white paper, on ethical economics as they work, as we all work hard on taking responsibility for our place and being self-conscious about what it is that our faith calls us to do in the world of ethical economics. So I find myself, ironically, driving down the road, writing on a Target bag my outline. So I'm excused a little bit, right? Look at how we do this. I'm excused a little bit because it's Target, because they have a decent trans bathroom. And it's a Prius, okay? It's like, that makes it better that I am a consumer in a consumerist society, completely colluding with a larger system that will continue to throw up moral monstrosities because of the lack of the moral foundation to our global capitalism. Each person is needed. We are not homo economists. We are not economic consumer beings. We are homo spiritus. We are the spirit of life. We are all of evolution, made conscious, made self-conscious of itself. So we demand of ourselves the inquiry into our own behavior and our own principles, that each person has worth and also wants to be preserving their dignity. Because we live in the context of an interdependent web, we take up the call toward our own moral agency. At least that's what I'm sending on to General Assembly this week. We move from episodic to narrative into consciousness and self-consciousness. And then we're told there is universal consciousness, where we can forgive the world for being the world, where we can be bigger, where we can know that what we have loved and lived will never go away. No one can take that from us. I remember a New Yorker poem where there's the goddess Kali. Goddess Kali is the goddess of destruction. She eats egos. And she's got skulls around her neck, and she's got long claws, and there she is in the sky above this little couple barbecuing on their back porch in all her color and fury. And they're saying to one another, it's Kali, the goddess of destruction, but what she's doing in Middletown on a Tuesday night is beyond me. So you will always have chaos in your midst. You will always have the challenge to rise, to stay centered, to move forward with all of the consciousness, self-consciousness, episodic joy, and universal love that you can muster as an individual and as a community. Blessings on this journey that we all are on.